This Bucks-Pacers series isn't a wake-up call, it's yet another full-blown reality check. If Indiana closes this out, that's 2 straight years the Pacers send them home and 3 consecutive years Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't go past round 1. At this point, Giannis leaving Milwaukee is inevitable and is more about where he'll go this summer, not if. And there is one obvious destination. So far, Indiana has been dominant in the playoffs. Even with Damian Lillard back in Game 2, the Bucks looked out of sync, struggling to find rhythm on either end. Pacers are exposing every flaw in Bucks' roster, especially on the defensive end where the issues appear unfixable. Indiana consistently gets the shots they want, taking full advantage of Milwaukee's defensive limitations. On the Pacers' home court, in the first 2 games, they put up 120 points per game and were second in field goal percentage among all playoff teams, shooting an impressive 50.3%. In contrast, they held the Bucks to just 106.5 points per game, while their three-pointer percentage was around 31%. What makes it worse is that the Bucks were top 5 in three-point attempts during that span, averaging 36 a game. That's high volume combined with bad efficiency. Giannis, meanwhile, is posting 35, 15, and 4 on 65% field goal percentage in 38.8 minutes. That's 5 minutes more than his season average, and I guess it would be expected. His on and off swings are wild, but that's something we've got used to. Milwaukee are plus 9.1 points per 100 possessions with him and minus 2.7 without. His points per shot attempt jumped from 125.4 to 129.6 once the series started. Effective field goal percentage from 60.4 to 65.1. Historic production once again being wasted. And just by looking at the rosters, it's no surprise why the Pacers are in full control. They're a much more complete team with several players who impact both ends of the floor. In other words, they have actual two-way contributors. Take their backcourt, for example, Tyrese Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard. There's no need to explain how much a playmaker like Tyrese would benefit the Bucks, but Nembhard deserves credit too. He's an elite perimeter defender, contributes offensively, runs the pick and roll, shoots decently, and is a real threat in transition. Those are the qualities that most Bucks players simply don't have. Even Lillard, as great as he is offensively, he's as much of a liability on defense. In fact, since the loss of Jrue Holiday, the Bucks barely have any quality two-way players outside of their leader Giannis. And as much as I'm not a fan of Doc Rivers and believe hiring him was a mistake for many reasons, in this case, I don't think there's much he can do. The roster is just not good enough. It's old, it struggles badly on perimeter defense, and also lacks individual talent all across the board. And to be fair, none of this is new. It's something many saw coming as the core kept aging. But the issue now is that the Bucks already made their big move. They brought in Damian Lillard, they added Kyle Kuzma, they're trying to integrate younger players, but nothing is clicking. When your best third option is Kevin Porter Jr., with all due respect to him, you have a problem. And speaking of Kuzma, he made headlines for all the wrong reasons with his abysmal Game 1 performance. In 22 minutes, his stat line was almost hard to believe. 0 points and a nice cardio session, as someone called it on the internet. The Giannis-Lillard duo has been a bad idea too. I've talked about it earlier, but they just overlap. They just don't fit together well because neither are great off the ball. They can't fit as well as LeBron and Luka, for instance. Those two are also dominant with the ball in their hands, but are superior playmakers, and their basketball IQ allows them to adjust. Anyhow, whichever problem you point out in Milwaukee, it doesn't look promising. Which basically concludes why Milwaukee is sinking right now, and Giannis leaving seems inevitable. So, this is where the Houston Rockets step in. They've been one of the biggest surprises this season, finishing second in a loaded Western Conference. All that without a single true superstar. But as we've seen in the playoffs so far, there are some issues, and those issues aren't short term if they don't make a big move. One of the biggest problems they have is a lack of high-level, offensive-oriented perimeter scorers. And Steve Kerr exposed that masterfully in Game 1. Alperen Şengün did his thing, 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 1 assist on 61% shooting. But that 1 assist actually says a lot. Kerr's game plan was to let Şengün score one-on-one, but shut down his playmaking, punish the Rockets' guards, and it worked perfectly. The Warriors blitzed and hedged VanVleet and Jalen Green in a lot of pick-and-roll situations, which barely gave them any space to breathe. As a result, Houston's backcourt combined for just 17 points on 7 of 34 shooting, including 2 of 17 from 3. In fact, the entire Rockets team shot just 6 for 29 from beyond the arc. But here's the most interesting detail about the first game. They absolutely dominated the paint, outscoring the Warriors 54-34. Again, that's not a coincidence, it's part of Steve Kerr's tactics. In Game 2, the Rockets were much better prepared to attack different coverages with their backcourt duo, especially by taking advantage of the drop coverage that gave them the space to operate. Green exploded for a huge game, showing improvement in decision-making, especially in one-on-one situations. You could say that this game shows that maybe they don't need Giannis, but I would argue otherwise. First of all, the Warriors lost Jimmy Butler in the first quarter, so the end result might have looked different if he was there. Second of all, it just proved that Houston is legitimate, and adding a piece like Giannis would make them one of the best, if not the best team in the NBA. No one doubts that Green can have explosive games occasionally, but he's still a bit far from being the primary option for a contending team. Zooming out of this series, the Rockets are the only top 3 seeded team in either conference without a true elite scorer. That is a red flag for any team trying to make a deep playoff run. And that's exactly where Giannis comes into the picture. He's one of the most dominant forces in the league, but he's also one of the most complex players to build around. His style is so unique that it's quicker to list the teams that do fit him than the ones that don't. To unlock his full potential, the entire system has to be built with him at the center of everything, both literally and figuratively, which in my eyes is accomplishable in Houston. What makes the Rockets so intriguing is that it's not just about their roster, but also their coach. Ime Udoka's no-nonsense philosophy and system might be the perfect match for Giannis. At least on paper, it feels like one of the few places where everything could align. When it comes to the roster, building around Giannis isn't just about putting shooters around him. It's about understanding how to manipulate spacing, how to maximize physicality, and how to weaponize the chaos Giannis creates. That's where Ime Udoka stands out from the rest. No one in the league is better right now at turning the so-called bad spacing into an advantage. Udoka doesn't need 5 shooters on the floor to run an elite offense. He leans into the strengths of his players, hides their flaws, and builds systems where toughness and versatility lead the way. If he's doing this with Şengün and Steven Adams in the front court, 2 non-shooters, imagine what he could do with Giannis. If the Rockets actually landed Giannis, the lineup options would be wild. You could roll out Amen Thompson and Giannis in a so-called small ball lineup, but let's not kid ourselves, there's nothing small about 2 absolute freak athletes like that. Just imagine the chaos they would create, the speed, the length, the physicality. It's honestly a nightmare for any offense. The real question is how much, and more importantly, what exactly do the Bucks want in return? My guess, as many draft picks as possible and a couple of guys who can keep them stay somewhat competitive right away. While obviously no trade is ever going to make up for losing Giannis, Houston could actually make the most serious offer. They would have to give up either Jabari Smith or Tari Eason, plus I'm guessing Jalen Green, Reed Shepherd, and 5 first-round picks. But now they're in a spot where they can sacrifice some young talent for something way bigger, pairing a generational talent like Giannis with a proven coach, a young core in Amen Thompson and Jabari or Eason that's just hitting their primes. Looking at other candidates, there's the Nets. They've got young talent too, but honestly, when you look at where they are right now, they just don't feel close. The whole point of Giannis leaving would be to maximize his chances to win a chip. It feels like they're still stuck in that figuring it out phase. I mean, they could stack every Phoenix pick they have, but their problem is that to make that trade happen, they would need to give up way too much of their top talent.
Like, you got 1 million picks, you got lots of extra picks from lots of places. What's the plan? Like, who else is coming with Giannis? Because who is Giannis playing with? So I'm Giannis, I'm looking around, it's like, okay, it's me and like Noah Clowney. Is Drew Timmy carrying me to the promised land?
So while Giannis in Brooklyn sounds possible, the Greek Freak would essentially go to an even weaker team. Another option could be the Knicks, for instance. In that case, the trade would probably be centered around Karl Anthony Towns, which honestly sounds interesting. New York is a huge market and seeing Giannis there would be great for the NBA. But I'm not fully convinced the Bucks would be satisfied with what the Knicks can offer. Cat is a big name, sure, but outside of that, I'm not sure, especially if they decide to go full-on rebuild mode. It just doesn't feel like the strongest offer compared to what a team like Houston could put on the table. But hey, maybe Milwaukee shocks us and just claws out of the first round. Even if they do survive, can you picture this roster beating Boston or New York 4 times in 7? I'm not sure even Giannis can. Anyways, drop your takes in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more NBA takes through an overseas lens.